Hello, and thank you for taking the time to hear about an innovative new way to engage job prospects and ensure that your organization becomes an employer of choice. Talent acquisition practices are going through a major change, and companies need to reevaluate the way they recruit and hire. So let me take about 5 minutes to give you some information we've gathered on some comprehensive research on today's online application processes, as well as introduce you to a new innovative way to meet candidate expectations and new requirements for recruiting and hiring going forward. Today, attracting passive job seekers is as important as ever. All companies can find active job seekers through job boards like Monster or Career Builder, and even their own career pages. However, even with high unemployment, the higher quality candidates are going to come from a group of people not actively looking to change jobs or careers right now. And given that companies are doing more to find quality candidates, it's also important for organizations to make sure that their brand and employee value proposition is understood by each candidate so that when an offer is made, it is then accepted. Companies should be concerned with and actually measure their offer to acceptance ratio, and if that number is not 3 to 1 or less, then there is significant room for improvement. Obviously, turnover also causes significant problems for companies. The higher the turnover, the more hiring needs to occur. And given a higher quality applicant pool, it will lead to significant reductions in turnover, as well as a process in place that allows for a pipeline of qualified candidates to fill positions when they do turn over. You can fill those positions much quicker with a qualified candidate, and the amount of time that that position's open obviously is reduced. All companies are being asked to do more with less, and a more efficient process leads to obviously more savings for a company. And lastly, today's web gen have very different expectations on how they want to be treated. The web gen are those that are used to using the internet for basically everything. They have expectations around being able to automatically make dinner reservations online without having to speak to somebody. And when they apply for jobs, they also want to find out specific information that they're interested in before having to provide a lot of personal information to the company, and in many cases before they even speak with someone live as well. So today's recruiting and selection websites and career pages have some major problems associated with them. There's a lot of information on them, and it's what I call information dump and certainly information overload. Companies often put everything they can think of that any candidate may want on the internet and ask the candidate to sift through and find what they're interested in. It's one page, it's the same shoe that fits all, it's a menu of choices that the candidate has to work through, and typically it doesn't change over time. Oftentimes companies adopt the mentality that, hey, if we build it and put things up there, people will come. But again, they don't lend themselves to driving passive job seekers in a more friendly way to that particular site. They will get the active job seekers. Typically, they just ask for information, and it's not an overly fun process for the candidate to go through, and there's no reason why it can't be fun. Next. After a candidate is done interacting with the website for 20 minutes to that hour and a half, oftentimes the next step is typically a quick phone-based interview. Well, how engaging do you think that interview is, and do you really think that the personal touch of that interview is what it should be or what it needs to be? Oftentimes when you look at that HR first interview, you're gathering basic information, minimum qualifications, salary expectations, maybe reviewing a resume, talking about availability, but there's very little to no screening going on, and it becomes more of a process. So your recruiters are simply going through the steps of gathering the information and scheduling the next step. Oftentimes it's one-way data gathering again from the person, and very little explaining to the individual why this is the perfect place for them to work based on that information. So to summarize, we've got a traditional process. From an overall standpoint, there's a career page, there are career sites, and a lot of things getting people to that career page. They search for jobs, they read about the company, maybe hear a testimonial. They then see the applicant tracking system. They can sign up for that. They do have to register, they have to pick a job, submit a resume, fill out an online job application, and then they get to the first HR interview, and then at some point there's follow up. Well, there's no reason that this process can't be combined, a number of the steps, can't combine a number of the steps, and be reordered utilizing technology and a different way of approaching the whole process. So companies, in my mind, really need to go through a paradigm shift in their process and thinking so that the new process can become one where that first HR interview is combined with an online series of questions and responses that's based on only what the person wants to hear and what they need to hear. The individual then gets immediate feedback, and it's only at that point, 10 to 15 minutes later, after they've heard that this may be the best place for them to work, that they're willing to then go through, register for the applicant tracking system, pick the job, and then the first interview becomes much more in-depth. You can look at things like manager fit, job placement, and a deeper skills measure because the recruiter's gotten all the basics out of the way automatically, and they can now focus on what they're best able to do. So, in a nutshell, some of the answers to the problems in the existing process lie in what I call adaptive recruiting and interviewing. The basic premise is you want to find out what motivates that candidate, find out what their interests are, and show your organization's value proposition and your brand based on what those motivators you've just gathered. Don't waste a lot of time explaining things you know they don't want to hear, you know that don't have any meaning to them. And this is all done through creating a system that utilizes technology to get what's very easy to collect via technology out of the way, and again frees up the recruiter to allow them to do what they do best. Some of the best practices then within that system, you should be using audio and graphics and certainly video. Again, a give and take with the information. You need to make sure your employee value proposition and brand is customized to the needs of the applicant and make the information the applicant wants to find out very easy to find, hear, or see through this process. Again, if you haven't already seen the demo, I encourage you to click from the main menu on the demo, and if you have, hopefully this has cleared up some of the information about that. Again, we'd love to talk to you further, and if we can be of any assistance in this or other recruiting and selection practices, please don't hesitate to give us a call.